welcome everybody. Thank you everybody for coming this evening. We have a special guest we're going to start the evening off with, Oskaloosa School Superintendent Paula Wright, and she's going to give us some information about a couple of the other ballot issues.
Thank you very much, Ken. First of all, thank you very much to Oski News for hosting this event and putting it on. We really do appreciate that to help get the word out about the school district. Also, thank you to Penn Central Mall for hosting this event. I know it takes a lot of work to get these kinds of things done. So thank you very much for everybody coming out tonight to hear what the candidates have to say. I promised Ken I'd keep this under 3 minutes, so I'm going to talk really, really fast. But I've had a lot of questions about the two questions that are going to be on the ballot in November concerning the school district, and so I wanted to give a real quick explanation as to what those two questions were. One of the questions is about the director districts. We are currently in a director district structure of 6 director districts. You can see them all here. So each director represents a different district, and then we have one at large. And so the directors have to live in those districts. They represent the constituents of all districts, but they do have to live in their district. So the question on the ballot is, does the community want to stay with this structure of 6 director districts and one at large, or would you prefer to move to a structure of all at large director districts? So a yes vote means that you want to move to an all at large structure, and a no vote means you want to stay with this type of a structure. So if it approves, all directors could live anywhere in the district and there would no longer be these districts anymore. Does that make sense? So it's a question of whether or not you want to keep director district structure like we've had, or move to a 7-member all-at-large. If that measure passes, it would go into effect at the next election, which would be in 2023. Okay? So that's one question. The second question, if you read it I know all of you have downloaded the app, so you would have gotten the news story about the other question. It is really long, and I do encourage you to read that question, but it is the revenue purpose statement, and that is a really strange word. It should be like revenue use statement, but it describes the current statement that we have in place. It is no change from what's in place now, but what it does is it gives the district authority to spend the state sales tax penny money and what we can spend it on. So the reason it's so long is because it lists everything we could legally spend that money on. There's no tax implication. It doesn't cost the district anything or the taxpayers anything. It just gives authority to spend the money on all those things that are listed. And the things that are listed are new buildings, buses, technology, additions, fixing things, all the kinds of things that we've spent money on. Roofs and tuck pointing and air conditioning and cement work and new carpet in classrooms, new computers for kids, new buses, those kinds of things. So it lists everything that we could legally spend that penny on. Got it? So those are the two questions. If you have more questions about those two questions, please call me anytime, and I'd love to visit with you about it, and I'd explain it in any way that I could. So, did I stay under 3 minutes? Probably not. I get a microphone, and I kind of, at least I didn't sing.
Well, you're probably the only person I'm going to let have the microphone tonight. So.
Thank you. Good luck to everybody.
All right, once again, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. We'd really like to thank Mr. Aaron Riggs back there on camera, and Cheyenne from Penn Central Mall. They're here helping make the show go. We also would like to thank Penn Central Mall for helping set all of this up. We'd also like to say thank you to all of the candidates. So it's never easy when you put yourself out there for public scrutiny. Thank you. And we'll just start off. We'll see if anybody has any questions. If you do, kind of meet me halfway if you don't mind. No hands? All right, so we'll start off with some pretty easy stuff. We'll start here, and we'll go down and just kind of introduce yourself, and we'll go along that way for now.
Hi, I'm Sean Garrison. I live in Beacon. I've graduated 2 children out of our school system. I have one in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary. Dorothy and I own a small business here in town that we've had for about 17 years, and I've worked with her now for about 8 years. This is all new to me, so I'll try to do the best I can and answer the questions that you might have.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Benson, and I live in Oskaloosa near downtown, pretty close to the square. I have 1 stepson and 2 grandsons, and they live in Virginia, so I don't get to see them as often as I'd like to. But my stepson did attend Oskaloosa schools for a couple years when he lived with us. So I'm doing this because I retired and always said when I was working that I was interested in running for the school board. And so I am retired now, and I thought this was a good time to start that. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Aaron Hina. I work at William Penn University. I am our lead academic advisor in our education program. So I work with teacher prep programs and highly involved in education. My wife, Emily, and my wife is a 6th grade teacher. We have 3 young children, 6, 2, and 7 months. We live just north of town, and excited to be here and be able to share my thoughts on everything moving forward.
I'm Sam Beltz. I'm the pastor of St. John Lutheran Church in Oskaloosa, which is on Merino Avenue going out north of town, close to the Pioneer Farm. I've been there for 10 years. I have 5 children, ages 10 to 3. We homeschool all of those children. I know that's a major question that a lot of people have. 4 of those kids are enrolled in our homeschooling assistance program that we have that's funded by taxpayer dollars here in Oskaloosa. We're very appreciative of that. I have a background in education. My undergraduate degree is in secondary ed and Christian education. I have a professional degree from St. Louis, Concordia Seminary in St. Louis. I have a second earned master's degree in theology and organizational leadership from Gonzaga University in 2018. And I have a desire to help in the school board by bringing an outside perspective. Not only am I outside of the normal routes of public education, but I'm also not a local, so I didn't grow up around here. Like I said, I've been here for 10 years. I grew up in Texas. I'm the son of a preacher who's the son of a preacher.
Hi, I'm Brent Nelson. My wife and I have lived in Oskaloosa now for a while. My wife Heather owns the Wonderlunch restaurant and was a teacher in town for a while. I've got 3 kids, Spencer, Kirby, and Elliot. Spencer and Kirby are at Iowa State and Drake, and my youngest son, Elliot's a junior in high school. Personally, I work at Pellicorp. I'm an IT security administrator there. Prior to that, I worked for IBM as a software engineer. Why I ran, I have always been interested in education. I've always stressed the importance of it to my kids, to work hard to get a good education. And, I saw that there was an opening in District 2, and I talked about being on the school board for quite a while, and I just decided to go for it. So that's why I'm here. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Kathy Butler, and I am running for the at-large seat that is vacated by Carl Drost. And my husband, Brian, and we live on a farm in rural Oskaloosa. We have 3 children. Colton is a 2020 grad of Oskaloosa High School and currently at Indian Hills in the Laser Tech program. And Kale and Maya are both juniors here at the school and involved in a lot of activities, so it's kind of fun to see everything that they're involved in and participate in. And of course, why am I running? It's been to me that schools are the center of our community, and I believe that we need to have a strong school and to make sure that we are creating a workforce that is able to critically think and solve problems and keep our community strong. My education background, I am an Oskaloosa grad and also a graduate of William Penn. I also hold a master's degree in business and technology management. I currently serve as project manager and senior business analyst for Vermeer, so work on a lot of systems and work with a lot of teams and to solve problems. So again, being part of the school board, I think it's about our children, our community, and our future. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming to attend tonight. It's good to see so many people from the community. Hopefully give you a little bit of insight and be informed when it comes time to make that vote on November 2nd, or if you do it early. So I'm Clint O'Day. I've lived in Oskaloosa about 16 and a half years. I have 3 children. 2 of them have gone through the Oskaloosa School District, and I have one that's a senior right now. So I also have 2 grandchildren that are currently enrolled in elementary school, and in 2 years I'll have a third. So I do have something at stake here. I have the best interest of the children in my mind and want to see that we get things going right in those early years. So that's a little bit about why I'm wanting to run, but I also feel strong leadership is important when it comes to making these decisions. So I did not graduate from Oskaloosa. I grew up in the very southeast corner where my mother was a school teacher for 40 years. So I graduated from Harmony High School, very small school. I did graduate from William Penn about 11 years ago, so I was a little bit shy of my 40th birthday before I got my college degree, but I am a William Penn graduate. I currently work at Vermeer Corporation. That's what brought me to the area, actually, so I've been there 16 and a half years. I've served roles in management, excuse me, and production, as well as materials management and purchasing. So got a lot of experience that I think will be beneficial if I'm selected to the school board. As I mentioned, Caitlin graduated from high school here. She's in her senior year of nursing at Mount Vernon Nazarene. And her aspiration is to become a nurse and serve the public as well. My son Andrew graduated 2 years ago. He's currently at the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy up in Camp Dodge. He's been hired as a police officer for the city of Oskaloosa, so once he completes that, I'm sure people will see him out in the community on somewhat of a regular basis. So proud of all the kids. Brant is a senior this year, and looking forward to see what he's going to do upon graduation as well. Thank you.
All righty. Better step away. So we have 8 candidates. Jason Carter was not able to be here this evening, but we have 3 races, if I'm remembering right, correct? So at large, District 2 and District 5. So everybody that's a write-in candidate, please raise your hand. Okay, so my question, we'll start down here with Clint. Why weren't you on the ballot?
Can you hear me? Yeah. I was not on the ballot because I'd given a lot of consideration to it prior to the deadline. I'm one, I like to think things through, and sometimes I think them through a little bit too long. I got to the point where it was nothing more than praying for a little bit of guidance and direction to see if this is really something that I feel that I'm called to do. I have that feeling. So through the praying, it was either bless it or block it, Lord. And 2 days afterwards, the opportunity seemed to come right to me, and that was His blessing it to run for this position. So that's how I got here, and that's why you won't see my name on the ballot unless you write that in there for the District 2 position.
Yeah, so I kind of similar story, I think. You know, I've talked to a lot of my friends and family. I've told them before I'm interested in the school board. You know, some of them prodded me. You know, they're like, oh, there's an open race here, you know, and, you know, maybe now's the time to go for it. So I've been caught up, you know, trying to take care of my kids, go to their activities, and you know, it kind of had been a second thought to me, but, you know, I saw the opening was there, and I said it was time to take that next step. You know, I've enjoyed being in PTO, doing a lot of volunteer things in town, but, you know, this seemed like the next natural step for me.
I had originally entered into the at-large spot with Kathy, and then that got to be a bottleneck, so there was a discussion about who should run in the at-large spot and who shouldn't run in the at-large spot, and I withdrew my name from the at-large spot to run. And then I was out of the race completely, and then I was approached by several different folks from the community after several different conversations asking if I would run as a write-in candidate for District 5.
I was actually on the ballot for at-large with Kathy and Sam. We had met, and I conceded. At that point, Sam and I both conceded to allow Kathy to run at-large, so there wasn't a divide of votes amongst us three. Same with Sam. He's a very strong theologian. I'm a very strong constitutionalist. I want to make sure that our children are given every opportunity for education, in the sense that, like Kathy said, with critical thinking, I want to make sure that the voices of District 5 are heard, or have an opportunity to be heard.
All right, do we have anybody from the audience yet? I know a few people approached me ahead of time and had questions. All right.
Okay.
And I'll hold the microphone.
Okay. I guess this question is for Mr. Beltz. From your Facebook post on the 23rd, you had, to quote, curriculum that promote, let's see, the minds of our children need to be framed and indoctrinated with what is true, good, and beautiful, not what is detrimental to their minds, bodies, and souls. So I guess could you give some specific examples of what you think is detrimental and what you would like to indoctrinate them with?
So what is detrimental would be the current push for CRT, critical race theory, as a framework for education in our schools. This is trying to undo racism by promoting racism at its most basic form. So I've done a little bit of study of this from its basis of law. So it has its roots in the law from Harvard, and I can't remember the name of the gentleman that wrote the textbook on this back in the 70s, but it actually developed out of a theory on law and inequality on the law, and then it was sort of pushed into other spheres of civil life, which it doesn't really work with. It might work to look at different laws in the books from previous generations and how those things are unequal between races and between different demographics. But when it starts merging into other places such as education or social sciences and various other forms, you get other difficult theories and frameworks which to impose them on the minds of kids. So that's one thing that I would consider to be ugly and not good for the minds of kids. Something else that's really starting to come on strong in our school districts, especially in some of the more prominent liberal-leaning and leftist-leaning school districts, are books like The Lawn Boy. Has anybody heard of this book? I can't remember the name of the author of this book either. Oh, does it need to be closer? Sorry. I need to remember the author. I left all my notes in my office. But this book, on several different pages, has explicit references to homosexual activity among preteens in summer camp. And this book has made its way into various school districts across the United States, and I believe I've seen it on the shelves, pictures of it on the shelves in places like Ames and in some schools in Polk County, which is extremely concerning to me. I don't think our kids should have access to books which openly promote pedophilia, essentially, and grooming activities on the shelves. This is a gigantic problem.
We're going to let him. We're going to let him finish his statement, and then you can.
Yeah. So the practice of homosexual activity among 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds, which is actually what is in the book, is actually the promotion of pedophilia. Right? That is not consenting adults in a relationship. That's the description of teen sexual acts, which I wouldn't want for hetero kids or any kid to be a part of, let alone the promotion of any sexuality from one way or another in our school district, right? This is a gigantic problem that
let's go ahead and start wrapping this up a little bit, though.
Well, those are two things in particular that are extremely harmful, ugly, and bad that should not be in our school districts.
All right, Kathy. Well, I'll let you stand up if you don't mind.
I guess, and then I'd like to hear first, okay, I guess we heard the negative potential stuff out there. I guess I never heard of this Lawn Boy book, so I can't speak to that. I guess what are the positive things you want to be indoctrinating kids with?
Yeah, so historically in the United States, and especially in the Western world, the classic Western canon has always been at the base of education. So both Kathy, I think you mentioned it, and also Sean mentioned the aspect of critical thinking, right? So critical thinking comes about through the indoctrination of good and healthy frameworks for thought to be produced. And that has historically been interaction with classic thinkers like Euripides or Aristotle or Plato or Homer on a very basic level. Philosophers who instilled frameworks into the minds of kids from a very young age through taking seriously their developmental stages, instilling facts, instilling frameworks and rhetoric upon them over the course of their developmental stages throughout their life, and then handing them over to a more logical, rhetorical approach when they're later development, where they would actually argue points and those sorts of things. And historically in the Western world, and especially in the United States, those sorts of frameworks are used. I'm a Lutheran pastor, Missouri Synod Lutheran pastor, and one of the historical people in the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, or actually in the historic Lutheran Church, Philip Melanchthon, actually reformed the educational process of Wittenberg, Germany, back to a classical approach out of what the Roman Catholics had turned it into in the days of the medieval church.
I hate to interrupt, but if I'd like to keep this moving.
I'm a teacher by
I know,
heart, so I like
know
to
you're
explain.
looking for Sunday church service here, but yeah, well,
I want to put Euripides or put Plato back in play, and I don't know, again, if Lawn Boy is in play in our school districts. No, but that's the important part, right? If Lawn Boy is on our bookshelves, and if our kids are having access to Lawn Boy, that book needs to go away, and something like Plato needs to be brought back.
Alrighty, I'm looking for another question. Alrighty, Pastor Bill Tweedy. I'll hold the mic.
Do not trust me.
Don't make me go there, Pastor.
Sam, I also want to know what you believe concerning who has the ultimate say on the way our children are educated, the school boards or the parents, or what is the ratio and what is the relationship between parental and school board influence on what they'll be educated in?
Yeah, so the sole authority on the education or over the education of children is the parents, the office of the parent. And where and when a parent cannot access or cannot grant education to the children in the home, they look to a teacher in the first place, not to a school board or an administrator. They look in the first place to a teacher. Now, it just so happens that in our societies, we've grouped a lot of teachers together and we've sort of organized them the way that we do, but parents always look to the teacher first. And where and when bureaucrats and overarching large government structures, school boards and administrators even get in the way of the process of education, that is coming in between the parents and the teachers, coming in between the children and the teachers, there is inevitably problems that arise. The more obstacles that are put in place between the parents and the teacher, between the student and the teacher, the more difficulty teachers have teaching, the more difficulty students have learning, and the more frustrated parents essentially get.
All righty. Any more hands out there? Questions? Oh, we have one down here. If you can say your name for me, please.
I'm Kendra, and I'm a mom here in the school district. And I just like to follow up with that question. Can we ask the same of the rest of the candidates on your opinions of what was just previously stated?
What are you wanting to know precisely?
So who has the ultimate authority? We'd like each of you to answer the same question that Sam was just phrased with.
The ultimate authority of...
Is it the parents or the teachers? Or the school board?
Or the school board.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Parent, teachers, or the school board, ultimate authority. I guess we'll start down at the very end, Mr. O'Day, and work our way down.
All right, thank you. First of all, I just want to be clear. The school and the school board does not replace parenting. We have to be good parents at home. We have to get the foundation started at home. The school is a continuation and advancement of that and what we're actually trying to teach them beyond the house. So I fully support the parents making decisions. The school, we're a resource for the children. That's how I view it.
I believe too, the parents are the ones who kind of guide their children, and the school is an extension of that. And also, again, teaching them how to think and look at things differently. But I think we also need to know that we also have to be an extension to some of those kids who may not have that foundation in their home. And so I think that's where we have put more on the public school. And just, we have, I think I spoke to it in my interview about, we have these core education goals that we have to meet as the teachers, administrators, and the staff. Need to put all that data together, but we also need to make sure that we have that balance of those kids who may not be getting that nurturing at home. The parents have that job, and we all know, even with the last 2 years, most of us have been taxed with a lot of different things, and especially our school. And I think I talked about that resiliency. And I think we just need to continue that open communication with the parents, the school, the administration. I have always had great relationships with my teachers, and I've never felt like, as a parent, I've never been listened to. And that's been from any level. If I've had a question or if I've heard hearsay in the environment, I've always been able to pick up the phone and call somebody. And so I think that's what we need to work on, is just to make sure that we are that extension and keep that communication open.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what everyone else has said here. I definitely think, schooling starts at home. When the kids are little and they're growing up, the parents reading them books, in the morning and at bedtime. I think that's where the foundation is set when they're young. As they, move into actual school and stuff, I think the parents still are ultimately the person that matters the most. And the school is there just to reinforce what they're doing. I think it's important that we have a lot of good role models at school. Teachers should be good examples for our kids. So that's all I'll add on that.
So I think this is fairly straightforward answer, but I think it's a partnership. It's not necessarily one person that's in charge. It's your parents, it's your teachers, it's your administrators, but it is the school board. And I don't want to act like the school board is higher or more important, but your school board is deciding these, and that's why we're all here, right? Because we know how important of a decision this is, and I think it's vital that the school board members are understanding, okay, what do the parents want? What do they want for their kids? What are the important issues? This is something that I've already been doing. I've spent the last 2 years as part of the district advisory committee, meeting with parents, representatives from the school district. So this wasn't just, and that's why I'm on the ballot. I was prepared coming into this. I had all the paperwork completed because I knew for a long time, this is what I want to do. I want to continue to do what I've done for the past few years, working with the school board, working with the community, working with parents, understanding the issues that we're facing. So this is something I'm ready to take on in the moment, fully understanding what you guys want for your community and for your children.
I think I may be a little confused by the question, but I'll try to answer it. It sounds like, of course the parents are the ultimate authority over their children, but when you send them to school, it just would not work to have 30 parents of 30 students in a classroom telling the teacher what they can and cannot teach. And that's what, I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding, but that's what it sounds like. That they get a final say in whatever gets taught in the curriculum. Schools are an institution, and there's a process you go through to come up with the curriculum. And there are lots of opportunities for parents to have input on that. They can be on the curriculum committee, they can be on the district advisory committee, they can go to board meetings, they can talk to teachers and administrators. But to have 30 people telling 30 different ways of teaching, the teacher would be crazy, I think, by the end of the day. I would be if I were that teacher. So you have to have some kind of a formal structure. And when you go through an election like this, we are the representatives for that board. And the board is not the one who really comes up and creates the curriculum. They're there to look over what's being done and to have input and maybe final approval. But there's a whole process in school. I taught for 14 years, and there's a whole process when you create curriculum. There are all kinds of state regulations and requirements for what you can teach. So a lot of the things that you might want to do, you would actually have to go through the legislature first to get those done, because that isn't how it works right now. So I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding that you don't want teachers or parents to all be able to say, you can teach my kid this, you can't teach them that, but that's what it sounded like to me, and I just don't see how that would work.
To answer your question, I think a few people have said the very same thing. We have a First Amendment right for natural law. And inside of natural law, God gives us inalienable rights. The school board is supposed to be the vehicle that helps the children. It's to encourage the teachers and to give them the tools necessary to teach what we as parents are teaching our children at home also. As Cheryl said, though, it is hard for 30 parents to come into a classroom and say, this is what you want to teach, or this is how you should teach. The school board, in my opinion, has a huge obligation to get it right. And I think they've done a good job over the years, but things are creeping in like critical race theory, and it's being masked. And without the right people there that can see the squirrel in the woodpile, it's going to continue to get worse. But yes, we are parents of our children. It's my job to teach my children the morality of what I believe is right and how I believe God rules me.
All righty. Do we have any questions from this side of the audience over here? We've been drawing from this well pretty big. Let's get somebody from over here. Could you share your name with us? And also a note to the candidates, please hold the microphone up so that not just everybody here can hear, but those that are online.
I'm Nola Ann. And first, it's more of a statement, not to call you out, but kind of to call you out because it's been a big issue in our school and it's been resolved over the last couple years. You won't find a classroom in Oskaloosa with 30 students because we did resolve to have smaller sizes. But for everybody else, I do, or well, all of you, I have a question. Wasn't planning to ask tonight, but a lot of you said that you've thought about running for a while and you just decided to. So my question is, what's your why? Like, what brought you right now to decide to do it? What would you want to improve? Like, what's that area that made you think or made you feel called or whatever to run now in 2021?
Yeah, let's just go ahead to everybody. So the main reason, the big reason, Noli, is that correct? Why are you on this stage tonight?
I made the decision to run for school board as early as April of last year. Our curriculum is on a 7-year cycle. We cannot afford to buy new books.
Hey, Sean, could you please hold the microphone?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Our curriculum is on a 7-year cycle. We cannot afford to buy new classroom books for each subject that we teach. So each year, it's a new cycle. Last year was social studies. The board approved and purchased a curriculum without ever vetting that curriculum. Inside of that curriculum is the 1619 project. I uncovered it. I brought it to the attention of the president of the teachers union. It was confirmed through the teacher that it was going to be taught as an opinion. I specifically went into Mr. Bandy's office and said, I'm the one that asked questions, and I'm telling you right now, if there's trickle-down effect to my children, it's not going to be pretty.
So I'm running for the at-large position also, and I've had a long interest in education. I got my bachelor's at William Penn University, well, it was college then, and my master's at Drake. I taught for 14 years. After teaching, I went to the Department of Education and worked for the child nutrition programs. So school lunch is what most of us call it. And in that capacity, I was able to talk to superintendents all over the state of Iowa. I was able to talk to business managers all over the state of Iowa. And also, when I was teaching, I was president of the association for a while. And so for 4 years, I sat and watched the board meetings twice a month. They had them then. And I just found the whole process of the board interesting. And I think my experience and my interest and the fact that I'm retired, so I have the time to do this, are the main reasons I have come forward. I think I have some specific skills that would help the district. One of those is when I worked for the Department of Education, my specific chore was the food service management company contracts. So in that capacity, I was in charge of the RFP, which is the request for proposal. I rewrote that every year. I was the one who oversaw all those RFPs and contracts as they came in, and I reviewed those schools. One thing I found in reviewing those schools is that there were quite a few of them that were not doing proper oversight, and there were quite a few times when we had to get money back from the food service management company. Oskaloosa uses a food service management company services, and so I would like to have oversight of that. And then also, there's quite a few RFPs, bids that go out, and I have a history of working with those, so I think I would be helpful there. So mainly, I just wanted to get back to the community that I came to love and just be back in education in some way.
For me, the reason I'm running is not necessarily like a single issue. So there's not something that I'm displeased with or anything like that. It's simply because I work in education, again, working in teacher prep, so I know the area well. And I think I just have a tendency, I grew up on a farm. So, you know, farmers take a piece of ground and you just want to make it better, right? You want to take what you have and improve the ground quality. You want to put your potassium, your phosphorus back in. You want to do all these things and just make it better. So I just gravitate towards that. I think Oskaloosa is a phenomenal place. We have all these great things in our school district that I think we can continue to market and show all these great stories from Oski schools. And just to make things better, I think, you know, I can't say I had this planned as an answer, but I saw Mr. Kitzman sitting out here. I had him at Sigourney. I went to Sigourney. I'm not from Oskaloosa originally, but my wife and I moved here. Having him as a teacher, being the great teacher that he was, that's what I want to continue to do. Again, I work in teacher prep, and I want to make them better to help change kids' lives. And I do that at William Penn, teaching kids myself, coaching kids. I coach football at Penn as well, changing kids' lives where they go from being poor from gosh knows where, and they come in and change their lives, and they're the first kid to go to college. So I'm just excited to continue to work with education more and more and make difference in kids' lives.
I think I echo Aaron. I have a pretty good set of skills. I have a good background. I have a history in education. I have a good mind with the philosophy and pedagogy that's necessary for training children from K through 12, and that's why I decided to run for school board.
My interest in, that led me to this point. I was really heavily involved in Oskaloosa Elementary PTO when my kids were little. Many of you maybe know me from things I've done there. I was the secretary, and then I kind of led our fun day at the end of the year for a while. that kind of led me to pursuing a Master's of Education degree in Curriculum and Instructional Technology. At the time, I really wanted to be a technology coordinator at a school and to really make sure that the technology was safe and utilized effectively. Ultimately, I didn't end up doing that. I took a job at Pella and then basically, family got busy. If you know my kids, they're involved in a million different things. So just because I was busy, my kids were in activities, and then my wife and I started a restaurant. So that's kind of why I didn't apply before this point. But, just lately I've been thinking, I got one left in school, and I'd like to, make a difference with future generations.
Let me bring this one to you, Kathy. I'll trade you out. Well,
Hello. Now I'm working. Woo.
Here,
Okay.
I'll just trade you this one out and change the batteries.
All right. My why has always been the kids. And for the past 15 years, and probably most of the teachers, the administrators, and the support staff, they probably would tell you I'm in the building a lot. And it's just always been about the kids for me. And I've served on the Booster Club. I currently serve as a Booster Club treasurer, have done that for the past 8 years. I also sit on the Education Foundation Committee, and we do a lot of good stuff for the fine arts. I've also served, as Brent said, we served together as PTO president and treasurer for that organization in the elementary, and we did many fun days together for all the kids. That's a lot of coordination. And even before that, for the community, I've served on things for William Penn. I've also done the Little League. And also sat on the Mahaska County Little League Board. So I've always been involved with the kids, and I love them at each of the levels. One of the great things of being in high school, you get to see that student section, and that's one thing that we're known for all over the state. And just to have that pride of being an Indian. And I think that's what we've been able to do with the Booster Club, is bring that student pride back. Do we have work to do? Yes, a lot to do, and I think I spoke to that in my interview, to work on the student achievement and that open enrollment, and also to make sure that our schools are safe. And I visited the elementary school today, and I've been vetted by second graders, so nothing that you guys can ask me will be as hard as that, so I'm just telling you. It was fun to see that I was able to check in. I had to scan my driver's license, and just knowing that all of our kids are safe in that building was reassuring to me. And the same thing of the same people greeting you, that's always just been the whole time through that. So I really think we have a lot of things going, and that's my why, to support all of the people in our district.
Thanks, Kathy. Well, that's a question I've been asked probably more than any other. Why would you want to run for the school board position? Your youngest son's a senior, and I think if my children were to answer that question for me, they'd say because I can be kind of stubborn, and I also like a good challenge. Well, while some of that is true, actually that is true, but deep down we all are here for the same reason. We want the best education and the best environment for our children. That's ultimately what every one of us is here for. That's everybody's want up here. We want the best environment, give them the best curriculum, help set the stage to help them become leaders. Some of these children are in preschool right now, or they could be a senior right now, but we're helping set that foundation for leaders when they set out in the community on their own. So if I just had to give a brief answer, we all want the best for everybody, all the children. So right now there's a lot of things being tossed onto their laps, at a very young age. There's more distractions now than there was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. The world is full of distractions right now. There's a lot of wedges being driven in between groups, families, and friends. So, it'd be great to sit up here and cheer for unity, and we do want unity, but we've got to focus on some of these distractions that are being allowed in and put across the laps and through the eyes and minds of our children. So my hope is that, if I'm elected to that position, I can be a voice for everybody here to do what's right and do what's best for the children. Thank you.
All right, so everybody came out tonight, so there's a lot of you. And I'm sure most everybody had some sort of question in their mind that they wanted answered. So, oh, we have one down here. I'll be back. I saw your hand. And could you state your name, please?
I'm Michelle Purdom. My question to you is at the last board meeting, Superintendent Paula Wright announced her upcoming retirement at the end of the school year. So if you're selected, there's a good chance you're going to be a part of identifying the next superintendent. What are I'd like to know from each of you, what are the top 2 criteria or traits that you're going to be looking for in our next superintendent?
And we'll start here at Clinton, I guess. Well, no, let's start at Sam, and we'll just kind of alternate back and forth out. Let's do something fun, all right?
Yeah, I think my first criteria is going to be a healthy experience and a healthy system of education. That's definitely got to be the first one. And the ability to listen to teachers as teachers communicate the data from the classroom back to the school board and the administrators so that the school board can make educated decisions about its policies. I think from my experience working in or around school districts and around superintendents in school districts is that sometimes the superintendents can get absorbed into the bureaucratic manager system rather than being involved in listening to the teachers and pursuing the data that the teachers are delivering from the classroom to inform the decisions on a school board level or on an administrative level. That's definitely one thing. I think it's probably not just localized, or if it is even localized in Oskaloosa, I don't even know, but it tends to be a systematic problem. So I guess that would be a healthy experience and a good system, and then a willing ability and a competency to be able to communicate data and translate data to an administrative side from the teachers. Which side first? Okay.
I'll take it.
Sorry. You're my opponent.
I don't know if it's my top 2, but 2 of the ones that pop to my mind, I think obviously first and foremost, a good communicator. A superintendent to me is one that wants to talk to the teachers, wants to establish a good relationship with the teachers. Everything works better when everyone gets along. And then my second one, maybe not my top, but I really want a superintendent that wants to be here for the long haul, that wants to make Oskaloosa a destination. I've seen entirely too many principals, good principals leave during, the last 10, 15 years, and, I don't want that to continue. So finding a superintendent that wanted to be here for a long time, wants to do a good job, that would be important to me.
So I think a big thing for me is not to say, I have all the answers and this is what we should be looking at in a superintendent because I know what's best. I think I have the skills that I can definitely help with that process, but I think more importantly is I've already built a lot of quality relationships, again, working with Oski schools, working with teacher prep at William Penn, being in the Oskaloosa School District. I mean, I look out here, I won't name names, but I see people that have come and graduated through our program in the audience that have done field experiences in Oski schools. And so I've built a ton of relationships with teachers from kindergarten through high school, school administrators. Mark Scholes teaches classes with us at Penn. I have relationships with him. I have relationships with several different school board members that are here in the audience. And through that process, I've been able to understand what they know. So I think the big thing for me is to listen to what they've experienced and what they know, coupled with what I'm hearing from people I know in the community through my involvement. Not only am I involved with the Oskaloosa schools, I'm on the Mahaska County Farm Bureau Board, active member of one of the churches here in Oskaloosa. So just hearing what everybody else wants and expects out of a superintendent, but probably if I'm truly just answering your question, big things for me are communication and kindness. I just want somebody who's going to be kind, who exudes confidence and promotes a positive culture here at Oski Schools. So.
Kathy.
I think the top two traits that I would be looking for would be that they're approachable and that they're able to listen to all of our community, the parents, the community, the teachers, the administrator. And of course, I'm always an achiever, Michelle, so I'm going to give you 3. They can make decisions. So I have sat on those in the past as a parent and then also as president of the PTO when we've selected previous superintendent. I didn't sit on Paula's, and also some of the principals. And I think it's very valuable to get that input from all the levels. And I think our school district does a good job of that, of making sure we have the teacher input, the administrator input, and the community and the parents, of course.
Thanks, Kathy.
Hey,
Okay. On? Oh, I think it's on. Okay. My first thing would be the experience that I would look at. Does the person applying have experience in a rural area and a school size maybe at least somewhat similar to ours? I think that's important. Because if you haven't come from a rural area, it's a little more difficult to understand, I think, how it works. The other thing, and this goes back to my experience with superintendents, I remember one superintendent, and he was very personable and outgoing and went to every single game and music and came to all the classrooms and talked to everybody, and it was wonderful. But he didn't really do his job. And then we had a superintendent, and he wasn't personable, and he never talked to anybody, and he didn't strike you as very approachable. But he did his job. I mean, all the policies were updated when they were supposed to, the trains ran on time. And I always thought if I could have put those two together into one person, that's who I would want hired for that job. And I know that's hard to pick out. It's a thankless job. And I've never been able to figure out why anybody actually wants that job, because you've got the community mad at you, and the parents mad at you, and the students mad at you, and administrators and the teachers, and they're all fighting each other. So I hope, whoever is on the board is able to find a competent person who fits in our community.
all righty, Clint, now your turn.
Now it's my turn. All right. Well, I hope and I pray that I am one who's able to sit in and interview potential candidates for the superintendent position, because I would have a list probably 4 pages long of things that I'll be looking for, but I'll keep it brief for Michelle's question. The work history stability would be a big thing for me. If you're an employer, then you obviously, that's one thing that you do look at when you're interviewing people. You want to see some consistency and stability in there, but you also want to get a hold of that person who's looking to take that next step and bring some new ideas that may mesh well with where the district is headed already. So I'm going to be looking for somebody that would be good at making policies, an effective communicator for sure. If I don't get that feeling throughout an interview process, we're going to have a hard time moving forward there. But how you convey yourself, are you confident? Do you present your message well? Is it clear and concise? So those are things that I'd be looking for sure. And one of the most important thing is the passion for leading. Are you a visionary? Are you able to say this is what you would like to see the school district doing or working towards as a 2-year goal and as a 5-year goal? So that would be pretty important for me.
And Sean, last but not least.
Well, I used to travel all over the United States doing hiring for Aon Corporation out of Chicago. And out of all those things, I've learned that there's 2 primary things, especially for a superintendent in our school. One, we need to look at why you're leaving the existing school. Is it failing or is it thriving? The other thing would be is we have a moral compass. It's what separates us from Ames. It's what separates us from other towns. And my question would be to them, are you going to change the moral compass, or do you have intentions of changing the moral compass? That would be my 2 primary factors, is why are you leaving? Are they thriving or are they dying? And your moral compass, our moral compass in this community is most important.
All right, I have a question. So I like to make people maybe a little bit uncomfortable. So could my at-large candidates please raise their hand? All right. So I would like you guys to give 2 things that you believe the other candidate does well and would maybe deserve that position. And we're going to go through them all, so get to thinking a little bit here.
Kathy has definitely been involved in the school on a lot of different levels with the kids, and I think that's great, and the teachers. And she's been in the community and involved in that. Those would be the things I can think of.
One thing that I think that Cheryl does well is that she has that education background, and she has been in the classroom. And as the main focus, I guess, and the educator in the room, I've done that for college students, so that's just a bigger kid, but it's one of those. And also then I like how she put on her, I guess her experience was about doing contracts. And I think that's one thing that we have in common, because she's done RFPs. I have to do that as part of my job every day. So we do have a lot in common. And I think that's what you have to do is, I think that's what we've lost. I think a lot of the times in this, when you're trying to compliment somebody, you think automatically if you disagree that, oh, we don't like that person. And I think that's one thing. We have to go back to those kindergarten rules, that we may have differences, but we also have that common ground. So I think Cheryl has kind of proven that with her time in the classroom. So that's what I value of her.
All right, so our Director District 2 candidates, please raise your hands. All right, so gentlemen, same thing for you guys, and we'll start with Clint.
Well, I used to serve a little bit of time with Brent for PTO activities. We used to do the fun day and stuff. I think he's got some good qualities. I'm not here to say that I'm better than the next person down the table from me. Ultimately, you as the voter is the one who's going to fill in the oval or write the name down on November 2nd. So I think he's got some good qualities. He's been involved in the school and the school district before, brought children through the same as I have. So nothing bad to say. That's where I'll leave it, I guess.
Yeah, I could probably say the same things, Clint. I remember you back in the day helping out at my fun day event, so I appreciate that. I know it's 10 years ago, but I think I really appreciate Clint's passion today. He seems like he's got a vision. He wants a vision for our district, and I think in general, I think he wants what's best for kids. So I kudos for those things.
All right, and my District 5 candidates, hands in the air, please. All right, so we're going to start the same thing here. We'll start with Sean, and I'd like you to share a couple of good things with your opponents.
Well, I don't know much about Aaron, to be honest. He sounds incredibly educated. As somebody on the outside looking in, that sounds incredibly enticing. Sam, we've just recently kind of gotten to know each other. He is extremely strong when it comes to curriculum. He is a lot more articulate than I am, and he is a lot better at getting words out than I am. Sometimes I just kind of let them fall out. So, but that's about as much as I can throw down.
I appreciate that. And Aaron?
I'd say with Sam, I can definitely hear his passion when he's talking. Sounds very educated as far as knowing different works and from his educational experience that he outlined. So that was a very good thing. For Sean, I would say the same thing. I mean, you can hear the passion in these guys' voices. They're up here for a reason because they care, and I applaud them for being up here wanting to run for school board and try to make a difference in kids' lives. So definitely nothing wrong with that.
All right. And Sam, you're...
Yeah, the same. Aaron, I don't know you very well, but you look really great. You're the most well put together guy on this table, which actually speaks a lot, and you're clearly organized. So those two things alone are standout star candidate issues. Sean and I, we are not as well put together as you, obviously, in our attire. But for Sean, you're a watchdog, and you bite into the constitutional aspect of things better than I can, and you know those things really well, which I think is an important aspect moving forward for understanding the constitutionality of our civics for us as a small community.
Thank you.
All righty. Anybody from the audience? I know I had seen a hand over here, and I see this gentleman. I'll get to you next here.
First of all, I just want to thank you all for putting your name in the hat. We appreciate you representing our kids. My name is Shannon Johnson, and my question is about masks. I want to know where y'all stand on mandating masks in our schools. Thanks.
Who wants to take the first swing at this?
Mandating masks is a terrible idea. I don't support it at all.
Likewise, I believe that is a parent's choice. I don't believe mandating it is going to accomplish the goal that anyone who's seeking to mandate it will accomplish, so I do not support that myself either.
I am for parents' choice also. I don't believe the mandate will serve anybody any purpose, but if you as a parent feel your child needs to wear a mask, then by all means, put them in a mask.
You know, I thought about this a little bit too. I see some benefit in masks, but I don't really support it right now at the schools. I think it's just another burden you put on the teachers to have to police that at the school. And I do think, you know, parents should have a right to send their kids to school with a mask. And I think that, you know, we need to be, you know, the administrators and, you know, if we see some kid that's getting picked on for wearing a mask, someone needs to stand up for that kid and say, you know, it's your choice. And but in general, overall, I don't believe in a mask mandate.
For me, I'm not going to be somebody to stand up here and project my views, whatever those are, on masks or not, or vaccination or not, or if I'm a liberal or I'm a Republican or this and that. Those things for me are not important to you and your kids. What's important is doing what's best for our kids, for our community, for our teachers, everybody that's involved in the process. So again, I'm not going to come in like, you know, oh, I'm going to be elected to school board and I'm going to oppose all this and tell you guys what it. No, I'm going to lean on the medical professionals and continue to build that relationship the way that I know that Oskaloosa schools have. And do what's best for our kids. And again, not impose mask mandates or this and that, but listen to the professionals and do what's best for everybody involved.
First, I think we have a million other more important things than a mask mandate. And if you're asking, am I in favor of a mask mandate, my answer is no.
Pretty much the same consensus across the board. I don't believe it should be mandated. I believe that if the child, I have 2 children in the high school, one wears a mask, one does not. That's their choice. So that's where I stand.
All righty. Well, we have a question here from this gentleman.
My name is Justin Shipman. My question is for Cheryl. In your interview that you did with Oski News, at the end of your interview, you talked about how you've seen a lot of people talking about freedom when it comes to vaccinations, masks, and those sorts of things. And you kind of equated people that are talking about freedom being anarchists. That was your words. And so my question is that what you're going to think of our children that have those same feelings?
No, what I meant, and maybe I didn't articulate that very well, is that if you let every individual decide what they can and cannot do in a school, and if every parent is going to say, my child's allowed to bring a knife, or my child's allowed to hit somebody else, or my child's allowed to rip up a book, that's anarchy. There has to be a structure and a set of rules in any institution, or you just have madness. That's what I was referring to, not that that freedom is in itself is anarchy. It's just that you have to have some structure to it.
Alrighty. Do we have another question? Okay, I see one here. Am I missing anybody over there? Yeah, all right.
Hi, my name is Kristen Parks. I have 3 children in the Oskaloosa School District, a junior, an 8th grader, and a 6th grader. I think one of the issues that was discussed in the last election was around behavioral issues. I don't think that has changed. That's still an issue. I hear from my kids on a daily or weekly basis that there is behavioral challenges in their classroom, which detracts from their own learning environment. And I am a huge proponent that everyone has access to a public education, right? And everyone equally should have that access. At the same time, I think we are doing many of our children a disservice in the education that they're getting, and also a disservice to our teachers who really went into teaching to teach and help educate our children. And many distractions in the classroom detract from that. So I'm just looking for each of your opinions and recommendations and what you can do for the future of our kids' education from a behavioral standpoint.
We'll start with Kathy.
Okay, that's good. I think I alluded to we have rules and responsibilities, and yes, we do have freedoms. We all have those freedoms, and we don't want to take those away. But again, we all have a daily series of choices, and I think that's what we need to teach our kids and instill in our kids. And again, putting more back on the teachers. I know we've all heard about the examples that our kids bring home from school. But again, I think we need to make sure that you're free to choose, but you're not free to choose the consequence. So I think we need to be better at making sure that, I've had many stories shared with me that, that was your choice to misbehave and these are the consequences. But again, it's kind of one of those, not our foundations, like Clint alluded to, are not all the same. We have to make sure that, I guess the punishment fits the crime or the consequence. So rules and responsibilities are what we need to reinforce in our kids.
Any other takers?
I'll say something. I think it's important that there's a plan in place and that plan is upheld by the administration. That, for example, if there's a rule that homework can't be turned in late, but then a parent calls and then they say, well, let them go ahead, that undermines that teacher's authority, and I think it causes problems for those teachers. So I think that could be true anywhere in the lunchroom or any place else. If the rules aren't adhered to and the people enforcing those rules aren't backed up, then I think that's where a lot of problems can begin.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and it's actually a much broader systematic issue than just the schools, because in my experience teaching in schools, both elementary schools and even in university settings, even international university settings, which I taught in, the issues when kids have outbursts in school, it's always a family systems issue. So the kids are always importing issues from the home into the school and having outbursts at the school when they feel safe or when they feel pressed. That's, again, maybe not 100%, but there's definitely significant congruity to those sorts of outbursts and misbehaviors in school. So I think when we're talking about that, it can be one snap reaction for school boards and administrators to overimpose rules on children and not see what's best for the children in the school. But we also, like you're saying as a concerned parent, one of the more major concerns that I've heard from a lot of parents in the Oskaloosa School District is the safety of their children when they're going to school. From bullying, which has been a surging from what I hear internationally and also nationally in schools, but also in Oskaloosa, this is a problem for our kids being safe in the schools. So, like I said, this is a systematic issue. I don't think this is just something a school board can solve. I think this is something that the city needs to solve. We need more mental health therapists in the area. We need people that specialize in children mental health therapy. My wife is a licensed mental health counselor, so I understand deeply the needs for children and mental health care. But the schools need to also be equipped with effective counselors in techniques with family systems theory and various accesses, and there needs to be a lot of cooperation between the schools and the city in making sure that these things are addressed, right? And that's generally something that's much broader. That's a much broader, we have the mayor here, so that's a much broader question than just what a school board can do. That's definitely a much more, like I said, systematic issue that needs to be addressed. But I do think it's critical, and we do probably need to have more structures put in place to help keep kids safe and also help keep kids well in the schools.
All right, Sam, you can have the mayor expand on that tomorrow night during the city council forum. So, all right, we have one more question here from Bob Morris.
This is Bob Morris from Oskaloosa. This is another one of those more pressing issue sorts of questions. Just a few years ago, the Des Moines Register did a study of all the colleges in the state that were turning out teacher education students. And they found at that point, I believe the figures were that in a 5-year span, 400 less teachers per year that were being turned out of Iowa colleges. That was a number of years back. I know that every district is having real problems finding teachers. Teachers are leaving, teachers are not coming into the system. We're looking statewide at alternative methods for teachers. My teacher wife is in a special ed position she was asked to fill from Gen Ed when we received one applicant. We have a situation right now where I believe we still need a number of associates to even meet our state requirements. For you as school board members, and I know that a good deal of this falls also to administration, but what can we be doing to make certain that we're going to have the staff and retain the staff that we need to have a quality school system?
Yeah, I'll gladly take a crack at this one. Thanks, Bob. So again, I work in the education program at William Penn, and I've been fortunate enough to work under Shane Arisman. He is just recently became the director of our program. Shane is formerly the superintendent at Linville-Sully Schools. He's been at Washington Schools, Marion Schools. He was the administrator of the year in the state of Iowa and does a fantastic job. I've been fortunate to learn from him. We have, in the last 3 years, even prior to Shane, we've been really building our distance learning program at William Penn University. And we have a paraeducator scholarship, and we have a program that we call Grow Your Own, in which it pays for the schooling for your paraeducators to transition them from a paraeducator to a licensed teacher. So this has been phenomenal, and our numbers, I have them in front of me, and if anybody wants to talk to me after or see more about our program, I'm happy to share this info and give you a handout if you like. We went from an enrollment of 78 students in 2018 to 167 currently, and we're continuing to grow. We're getting to districts all over the state. So one, by having this program, and we've had a lot of OSKI paras come through our program and now become licensed teachers at working in OSKI schools, but having those connections with multiple school districts is going to allow me to kind of have an inside track of, okay, these are people that we're working with at Penn. We can try to help get them here at Oskaloosa as well. I mean, on Friday, we're going to go to Iowa City, and we're going to meet with superintendents, principals from over 90 school districts. So if you want to talk about possibilities of having future teachers here at Oskaloosa, I will definitely have a lot of connections to be able to help OSKI schools with that.
Thanks. Mr. Morris, that's a really good question. So I sifted through the actual spreadsheet from the Iowa State to look at all the average salaries for new teachers, which is accessible to everybody. And for a school district that has an enrollment about our size, Oskaloosa actually ranks as one of the lowest school districts for pay for new teachers out of colleges. I think the average, and somebody can check the spreadsheet on it if you can pull it up, but if I remember right, the average salary for a new teacher coming out of a university working for the Oskaloosa School District is right around $37,000, which in my calculations is almost $3,000 to $4,000 less than other school districts of comparable size in the state. Now, that's a significant issue. If you have two graduates coming out of Iowa State or Iowa City or any place, UNI, and they're looking for a place to go, they're not going to fall on Oskaloosa as easily as another school district simply because of the numbers. The cost of things is going up, the price of insurance is going up, the cost of raising a family is going up, the cost of housing is going up. I think something that the Oskaloosa School District seriously needs to look at is increasing the base pay of its new teachers to try to bring new faculty and staff in, because one of my major concerns is that the teachers are going to increasingly feel the pressure of all the COVID restrictions, the increased pressures of learning and the new age of learning that COVID has brought on. And we're going to see more fallout over the next 5 years of our teachers. So you're exactly right. We have to remedy this situation. And I think it starts with the most basic thing, which is we need to pay our teachers more when they're coming out of college.
I don't know if it's still true, but it used to be when I taught there 100 years ago, that the insurance was fully paid for, and I don't think that's true anymore. But that was a huge part of the reason sometimes our pay was lower in Oskaloosa, was because they were providing full family insurance. So I think that's something that could be looked at. Is that still true? And if not, then we do need to bring the pay up to where everybody else's is. The other thing I'd say about retaining teachers is the morale and any staff member. And I think the last 2 years have been hard on all of us, and teachers especially, and parents who are homeschooling their kids during this time. So it's a matter, I think, of support and whether the staff feels supported and feels free to bring issues to the administration or not. Oskaloosa, I think, does a good job of praising and on their new online stuff they do, where they have the person of the week and everything. So more of that, more communication, I think that would help.
I don't have a whole lot to add other than what's already been said, but the other idea I had, I do think teacher retention is really important. We've got some great teachers in this district. A lot of my kids, my kids have had a lot of great teachers over the years, and I think there's ways that we can also make the job better for them, listening to them. I think, there's perks we could give them, right? Like give them an extra sick day for a mental health day, right? Or give them a Y membership, right? We built this nice new childcare, Y facility. Maybe that would be something we could throw in, just as an extra little perk of the job. But I think it's about making them feel appreciated, making them feel like they're a part of what we got going on at the school.
I don't think we're alone in trying to hire and retain employees. I think all the industries are feeling that, especially in the education. In my previous role, I spent 10 years as a comp and benefits manager, and just know there is a cost of those, giving pay increases and giving benefits. Nothing is free, and like anybody, we have to manage a budget. So I think it'll be interesting to look of what we could do for the school district. And then also, I think like some of the candidates said too, is create that culture of we are a place that the teachers want to come out of school and have those amenities that the teachers, and they feel like they're valued here. And I think that's the part where we need to start on that culture.
Thank you. And I don't have a whole lot of other to add to what everybody said, but I will say, being raised by a woman who was a teacher for 40 years, I love teachers. And I have contacted several of my children's teachers and told them, teach them like they're your own children. So the bigger thing that comes to my mind is retention. Why are we losing those teachers? Is it resources? Is it training? Is it support? Those are the things that come to mind. It's much easier to retain people and to close those gaps, solve those problems, than it is to go out and share the burden of expense for trying to hire new, find the talent and bring that in. So if you want my opinion, I want to work on retaining our teachers. And if that's a little bit more of a pay increase here and there than what the typical would be, then I'm all for that. So I know I don't have a big decision-making part in that, but I love our teachers and I want them to be well paid and want to come to work every day, because if they're happy, they're going to do a much better job doing what we're all here for, teaching our children.
All right. Sean, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think everybody said some very viable aspects that we could do to retain teachers. I don't know a lot of the logistics that happens there at that end of it, but I do know that we've had 4 of our clients this year who were teachers walk away. They're completely unhappy, and I've had teachers ask me if I'm chosen to be a board or a school board member, that we give them the respect and that we give them the tools and what they need to perform their jobs with. I think a lot of the teachers feel like they are governed and ruled by the board and not supported. So that's just what I hear on the back end.
All righty, we have a question from the audience here.
My name is Tara, and my question is, what are your thoughts on our current programming for our special education students, our medically handicapped students? What are your thoughts on the funding? And what are your thoughts on the supports that the teachers and the paraprofessionals get to provide to support these students to become the most successful and independent as possible by the time they graduate or by the time they turn 21, where they can no longer attend a public school?
Is this for them all then?
Yes.
All right.
So I think special education is a really important aspect of our public schools, and it is often overlooked, especially paraprofessionals with special education. And I think this is, you're welcome. This is also a question I have for parents too. So there's actually a lot of conflict on a federal and state and local level with how are things cooperated with between these various different places. So I know that I've, in my first degree, I worked in a special education program at Concordia University in Austin for college students in Austin who were cerebral palsy, spina bifida, various other handicaps that they couldn't matriculate through normal college education. And one of the things that came out of that program was that those students enjoyed one-on-one contact in close quarters with paras and with mentors and various other educators, other avenues of education. They did not thrive as much when they were, say, set into the normal course of education. And I know this seems to be a very controversial aspect of special education now on a federal and state and local level, but this is where we probably have to understand the data from both the parent and the teacher a little bit more. Is the student thriving in a classroom? If this is an 8th grade student with some sort of special handicap, is this student thriving in a classroom with his peers, or is the student falling behind in the classroom of his peers, and does he need to be pulled out of that classroom and have more specialized care? This is really a case-by-case basis, I think, since some students do thrive in a classroom setting with their peers and some students don't. We have to be very careful, especially with special education students, to put some sort of stencil over them as if they are all fit into one broad framework. We have to do that with other students as well, but most especially with our special education students.
I taught special education for 2.5 years in Sigourney on level 2. They didn't call it level 2 then, they had a different name, but it's the same thing. And first, as far as the funding goes, special ed's one of those few things that has quite a bit of federal funding. The second thing I'll say is the only reason there is special education is because parents advocated for it. Until 1974, schools could tell a kid they couldn't come because they had a handicap of some kind. So things have changed quite a bit. When I taught over there, especially, and I may be biased because that's what I was teaching was level 2, it was really hard for those kids because the resource kids, level 1, they can kind of, pass as regular education kids. And the level 3 kids, you could pretty much tell that they had a handicap. But level 2, you couldn't. And so there was a lot of comments about, oh, they're just lazy, they don't want to work and everything. Because there's a real misunderstanding of, the brain doesn't always work the way the brain is supposed to work. As far as where to go with them from here, I think it's important that they do get some time in the regular classroom. But I think it's important to have really qualified teachers and work with those children and help them to do the best they can. I know they can stay until they're 21. That's a long time. They do have individual education plans, and there is requirements, federal requirements, that you cannot leave them in the special ed room all day long. And if they are in a classroom, a regular classroom, and you decide that that isn't working, then you have to hold another individual education plan meeting, because that IEP they have is a contract. It's a legal contract. And so there's a lot that goes into special ed. It's very complicated. And things have come a long way, but I think there's further to go with that.
On the special education, on your question, I think the funding is very important, and I think we need to be good stewards of that. And then also, just like anything in the school, we have a tract for those who are in college, those who are on technical. I don't see any reason why there can't be, what to do. Like part of your question was, what do I do after my child turns 21? I have very close friends that have special needs children, and I know there's lots of laws and regulations that I am not going to pretend to know that the school is required to provide. But I think the best thing is just, again, to keep that communication open and to make sure that, you know what the path is for your child. And my heart goes out to you because I know that is very tiring for you as a parent. It's tiring for the aides, and they work hard, and we have good people in those positions. And like I said, I think we sometimes too have a shortage, but I know they hired more. But again, sometimes, like I said in my interview, I could not do what a lot of our teachers and our aides do every day. And I thank the Lord every day for them.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about this particular matter. But what I can tell you is if I'm in a position where I can make a difference, I'm going to be committed to making a difference. I can also say that what little I do know is about the funding and using those funds responsibly. Being fiscally responsible is pretty important to that program. So, my commitment would be, if elected, I will get to know these programs and be much more involved. Thank you.
The other thing I would add, I've heard at the elementary that, with some of the, associates, they rotate them through various, multiple students during the day. And for some teachers I've talked to, that doesn't work so well, right? Sometimes it's better to have a single associate be devoted to a single kid, for pretty much the whole year. That seems to work better for certain students. So, sometimes I think it's a policy issue, right? Or how we do things. I think that could be better. One thing when I took my master's class, one thing that really stood out to me, someone made the comment that treating kids equally doesn't mean the same thing as treating them, teaching them the same way. And, that's really kind of stuck with me when I thought about that, that some kids need to be pushed more. Some kids need more, love and attention, Every kid needs, different stuff, and, we got to do what we can. Custom education for every kid.
A lot of great points are made. I do know that we are ADA compliant with rooms and classrooms and bathrooms and that type of stuff. But what I see personally, I have two family members. One had to leave the community because he's autistic, and there was no resources for that family. So they had to uproot and move to a bigger school system where there was resources for there. So that is something that I think that we could probably assess. The other thing would be ADHD, and my nephew graduated from Williamsburg, senior year at Penn, and he still struggles. He's 22 years old and he still struggles with his ADHD. And I think that's kind of where we've fallen apart as a community, is we went to the extra lengths for different, wheelchair ramps and sidewalks and that type of stuff. But what is it, 1 in 10 now? 1 in 15 kids have ADHD? Something like that. And I think that's just something that needs to be assessed.
I think it starts with our funding, of course, and that's a very important issue that you bring up, which I think you messaged me about, maybe? Yeah. Funding is huge, and I think that can start with something such as marketing. This is something that I've worked with on the school district in our parent focus groups of talking about, okay, what are things we can be doing better? And one of those is marketing. We lose a lot of kids to open enrollment, and finding ways to share all the great things that are happening at Oski schools. And I'm sure, I won't name names, but I'm sure many of you can think of a certain teacher, either that your kid has had or that where you're like, this teacher is phenomenal. There are so many phenomenal teachers in Oski schools. And so to be able to celebrate that and promote keeping our kids here instead of open enrolling to some of the other local districts, which are also great districts as well, but we want to keep them here at Oski. And then that'll help us with the larger number of enrollment. That's going to help us with more funding to be able to help with that issue. But then as far as addressing specifically in the classroom, I have a fair amount of knowledge on curriculum and some things that we should be doing to, again, not necessarily make changes, but just be knowledgeable in the area of what's going on. And for example, in our social studies methods, what we teach is critical analysis. If we're talking about, say, primary sources, you're making sure that you're asking questions that any student can answer, right? If we're looking at a photo from the early 1900s, you're asking a question that anybody, whether from special education to talented and gifted, can answer that question. There's not necessarily always a right and wrong answer. If you're doing math, that's a different story, but if you're just doing critical analysis, you're working with people from all levels of the spectrum. So one, that's helping your special education students, but it's also helping our talented and gifted students as well, because I think both of those are very important factors that we need to consider and take care of all of our students across the spectrum.
Alrighty, thank you guys. We have one more question here, and we're going to start winding down. So if you have questions, come over and see me.
Hi, my name is Abby Hellman, and I am a teacher at Oskaloosa Middle School. This is my 6th year teaching, and I don't know that everybody is aware. I know it's public knowledge to be able to access how much each teacher makes, but I do want to address that specifically in what Sam was saying about how first-year teachers make $37,000-ish. I'm a 6-year teacher, and I'm barely over that. It's not your fault. I'm just putting it out there. I don't think that people realize that I want to be at Oski. I live 30 minutes away, and so there are districts that are much more closer. They're much more convenient, but I feel like this is the place for me to be. And I'm committed to my team, I'm committed to my students, and I'm committed to this community. I don't want to be anywhere else, but teachers are struggling to just be able to make it. So as board members or potential board members, you will be the people that are holding the money bag to decide, am I going to fight for these teachers to make a living wage, or am I going to not do that? I understand that there's only so much money in the pot, and you guys are going to have to be political, but I want to know who is going to stand up for the teachers and say, you know what, what we're offering is not enough. The first offer isn't good enough. They deserve more because they can't stand up for themselves and say, no, we won't, because we can't. We choose to stay. So I'm asking, who's going to choose to help us afford to stay?
What was your name again?
Abby.
Thanks,
Hellman?
Abby.
Yeah.
It's so sad that you're not getting the benefit and the reward for 6 years of service that you probably deserve. No. Right. Listen, I am generally in a thankless position also that does not have the benefit of deep pockets in a congregation, right? So we always get to the budget time of year, and the questions that I always have to face are, well, Pastor, how much are we going to either cut your salary or stall your salary, or what are you going to pay for in your benefits? And like you, as a pastor, it's not always a question of where do I go to make the most money, but where do I love to serve, right? So I understand completely where you're coming from on that aspect. I think this also brings up a topic that a lot of conservatively minded people don't necessarily like to talk about, which is the topic of taxation. Now, federal taxation is a giant problem, and the overreach of the federal government is a giant problem, especially into the pocketbooks of small town people such as all of us. Holly Brink is here. We can work on a state tax sort of cut, Holly, to put more money into the pockets of small town people, because I do think that small local governances such as Oskaloosa and other local school districts ought to have increased taxes to help pay for things, right? Now, we can gasp about these sorts of things, but if on a federal and state level there's less money coming out of our pockets, it makes it way more voluntary for us to put more money into the pockets of our teachers, to pay for paras, to build bigger classrooms so that there are less students in it, or put more rooms on our buildings, or however we want to do it. But of course that's unpopular, right? Nobody wants to talk about bonds and different spending tactics that go on for school districts. But that's really what we are here for as local people. We want our kids to be raised here. We want them to be good-minded. We want our teachers to stay here. And obviously there's sacrifice that comes with teaching, but not sacrifice to death, right? Not sacrifice to the death of your family or the death of your spirit. Nobody would want that. And I definitely don't want that for any teacher. I hate it when it happens to myself and my own family. I see the light go out of my children's eyes when we have to start having discussions about whether we move or not because the pay isn't going to increase, right? That is terrible. I don't wish that on anybody.
I have worked a lot with compensation and benefits, so I would like to understand, I think, more of how all the teachers are compensated and what is all in that package. And I think that's what, as part of the business world, is probably this half of the table. We all work in business, and we know that if you're going to pay people more, that money's coming from somewhere, and is it going into the product, or what are we doing? But we also want you to deliver a product. So I think I would like more information on that, and I'm not going to pretend to know, but I do have the newspaper with all the salaries, so I always look at that every year and aware of what most people make, but like I had no idea. I don't have all the numbers, and again, I'm a certified compensation specialist, so I've looked at all those for a big corporation, so I'd be interested to see that from an education spectra.
I was surprised to find out that school board members receive a salary. It wasn't until or payment.
No money. I'm also surprised about that, Sean.
Huh?
I'm also surprised about that.
Well,
I just haven't seen my money yet.
No, seriously, I was directed that school board members receive approximately $1,000 a month.
I'd like to know where that's at, 'cause I don't see it at all.
Okay. So clarity on that then. Huh?
All right.
My point being is if that's the case, that money should be going to the teachers, not the school board. But obviously I was wrong. I was informed wrong. So.
All right, any other thoughts?
I would want to know, is the family insurance still completely paid for? So this is where, when I was teaching there, I know there were at least 2 years when I was there when we gave up any increase in compensation in order to hang on to that full family insurance. So I think somewhere along the line that needs to be corrected, because that's part of the reason we fell behind. That being said, I tend to be kind of a conservative on money issues, so you don't know until you get in there what the budget is, and so I can't say, yeah, I'm going to give you an increase. It's not up to me anyway, even if I get on there. But I think that's an issue that needs to be looked at, is that compensation compared to the insurance.
Get a vote. So
Right.
this is just an inquiry, and I don't expect anyone to say, yes, I'm going to jump on it. But like I said, I don't think that people realize or know or understand that some of our senior teachers, and I don't mean senior like senior citizens, I mean senior like been around the longest amount of time, have taken pay cuts the last couple of years.
Yes.
Do you know that? Well, now you do, because that is, it's the way the money works. And I know that fair is not equal and equal is not fair. However, I have 3 kids. I'm a single mom, and I drive 30 minutes to and I drive 30 minutes from. I mean, but this is where I want to be, and I will wear myself out to stay in this community, because this is where my families are. I'm a special education teacher. I build those strong relationships and I hold on to them for years, and I don't want to let them go for $1. I want to hear that, yes, it's all about the kids. That's why we're here. But I want to know, will you be there for me? Will you be there for my colleagues? Will you step up to the plate and make it difficult for people to tell us no for the things that we need, the things that we require, and ultimately, I mean, I hate to say it, but deserve. Everybody's like, teachers deserve more. Well, okay, then, it's nice to say, but can you do it?
All righty. Well, just to note, tomorrow night the city council and the mayor will be here, and you guys can talk about housing, so you don't have to drive 30 minutes.
And I just want to talk about the medical insurance. I don't think anybody in here has free health care, and I think that is a cost, and you need to look at it. And I mean, it would be great to say, hey, let's give everybody the stuff free, but at the end of the day, there are people paying the bills. And what makes sense, and if that's in the comp and the benefits that that somehow works with the numbers, I think that's something to be, like I said, very intriguing to look at. And I'm not going to pretend to know all the numbers. I just see what's printed in the paper for all the salaries. And like I said, I have a lot of experience in that, so I would be more than happy to step up and look at and analyze those numbers, even if I'm not in the board, because like I said, I'm always in the buildings.
Come on over here. I'll just have you stand right here.
Our paras also, they work very hard, and they are not offered insurance, ever. Some of these paras are working over 30 hours, and they should be offered benefits. You can go to a district next door, the community next door, and those paras are offered insurance. We can look into paying our paras a little bit better and offering them benefits. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, Donna, I think that's an excellent point. And I'm going to come back to one unique thing that I can bring to the table is my work with William Penn, working specifically with paraeducators like yourself. Since you're at the forefront, I mean, Donna came through our program and has been in those shoes, so she would know. And again, we're working with a Grow Your Own program where we're giving a lot of leverage to paraeducators. Districts need school teachers, right? They need to have those, and so we're finding ways to partner between the school districts and potential future teachers such as paraeducators, where we can work with you, line up some sort of contract of, I'm going to stay for the first so many years once I get my teaching license in your district. So one, by having this tool of what I'm working with at William Penn, it's going to help us secure teachers in the long run, but it's also going to help those paraeducators, and maybe that's something that we build into such a package is, hey, okay, put them on health care. And so I think while we have nothing set in stone specifically now, I think those are things that I can bring unique to the table to help paraeducators, and not only help paraeducators, but help Oski schools.
All righty, just a last note. Some establishments have what's called a last call. So just note that that's going to be headed this way. We have one more question here.
Sean Moyer. I am currently sitting on the board, and just for the record, we don't get paid. So if you're up there for the money, it's not there. I'm not sure where that started at, but nope. Let me give you the hard question. Obviously, recruiting and hiring people is a big issue across the country. We got a real big challenge ahead of us replacing our CEO of the school district. What are you going to do to sell an individual to come to Oskaloosa and take over that position and basically promote the school district as a place that they want to work at? Ultimately, as an employer, that's what we have to do nowadays. We got to sell our business to the person we want to hire. How are you guys going to do that on the board?
All right, whomever's comfortable to start this conversation, go ahead.
I think, our buildings, for one thing, are a big plus for the district, and they're all nice, they're all updated, they're air conditioned, so I think that's a big plus for our district. I think having dedicated staff like Abby, who was just up here talking to us, is a big plus. And I think it's a good-sized district without being huge, but without being tiny. So there's a lot of things in Oskaloosa that are going on now that speak to the town and speak to the school district. So I think we have a lot to sell, and I think we need to find somebody who wants us too.
I think to recruit a superintendent, I think we have a lot of good things in our community, and I think I've spoke to that. One is our people, and of course our facilities are some of the best in the state, and I would put them up against anyone, and the cleanliness. And I just think that is a big thing, and there is a love for our community, and I think a lot of people want to be a part of that. But I think we need to sell our people, and that people, I mean, that's all of us. That's our students, that's our community members, and all of our parents. It's everyone. And just making sure that we have those right focus groups, and that they're asking the right questions, and making sure that we're vetting those candidates. And like I said, I've had past history with sitting on part of those. But again, we have a great community and a beautiful city, and I've had the privilege of the last 8 years sitting on the Booster Club board, and there's not hardly any businesses that ever tell our kids no. And I think a lot of administrators would love to have that type of community support.
Thank you. And like Kathy said, the people, we have to focus on selling the people. We've got a lot of great teachers here. We can have the nicest facilities, the prettiest baseball, soccer fields, complexes there will ever be. But if they're not happy with the people that they will be working with, there's going to be no longevity. It will be a short-term deal. So as she said, we have to sell the teachers, the staff, the people that are interacting with that superintendent on a regular basis. We've got a lot of good programs. This area is very warm and welcoming for families. Now, whether the new superintendent has children or not, that's all to be determined. But we have a fantastic area that we can bring children into. A new superintendent can bring their family in here. Feel comfortable, feel safe. A lot of great people, a lot of generous people that are willing to donate time and other resources. So I agree with Kathy. Let's sell the community, the teachers, the staff, the administration.
All right. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to talk about getting another superintendent in terms of marketing. And the reason I am hesitant to do that is because we've noticed a fundamental change in the way that institutions, and especially schools, talk about the people in the schools, teachers such as Abby and the various other teachers that are here. Has anybody been in the school district for a really long time or in an institution for a really long time? And do you remember what the name of the department was that dealt with the people of that institution? Does anybody remember? It used to be called personnel. Now what is it called? Human resources. Isn't this a disturbing turn in our language? I really don't like this turn. I think you're people, you're persons. You should be treated like persons. When we start talking about selling the teachers or selling the community, right? Like this is something that we should be marketing like some sort of weird dealer. I think this is really harmful for our image as a community, right? And I'm not from here, but I even know that. We don't want to start imposing marketing structures on ourselves to try to make ourselves look better. I understand that there's, of course, needs for this, but maybe we just want somebody that's gonna do the nitty-gritty work, right? I like doing work. I like getting my hands dirty on work. I like gardening. There's probably somebody out there that's willing to sacrifice like Abby, right? And sacrifice like our teachers to do the work that needs to get done. That might take a little bit longer to find. But maybe we owe ourselves as a community the task of a long, intentional look at exactly who we want to come into this place and who's going to love this place, of course because of the people, of course because of the homes, of course because of the communities, but they're gonna love it because they're gonna work so hard like Abby has worked that they're going to fall in love with it because of the work, right? That's what I think. I think maybe that's a little bit too romantic, but I've always been accused of being a little bit romantic.
All right. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think that while there might not be, and I like what Sam said about not pushing this on people, I think the right individuals will come to us. I mean, I think we have an excellent individual in our secondary principal, Jeff Kirby. His wife worked at Lifetime Dental for years, so there was a natural connection there, and he's done a phenomenal job at the previous places he was to here, working in the Ottumwa School District, done some really exciting new age things there. So I think the right individual will come to us, but I do think that there are ways that we can market this to individuals that are trying to come to Oski. I think we have to sell ourselves. We can't just hope that the right person is going to come. When I take a group, I set up with Mrs. Peterson at the elementary, we do volunteering at the elementary with some of our football players. We'll put jerseys on and we go do recess duty. The teachers love it because then they don't have to do it. And then they're so enamored with our players that the kids are gravitating towards them. And then we've also started to do this High Five Friday. Has anybody heard of that? It has been awesome, and the teachers and administrators have told us that it just changes the day for everybody, and it's made it so much better for the kids because and just to explain what it is, the William Penn athletes, they come, they all wear jerseys, they line up in the corridor as kids come in and they all run by like you're getting introduced at a game and give high fives. So I think, sharing even just little things like that and selling that, this is something special that we have here in Oskaloosa, whether it's a relationship with Penn or it's the people. There's a lot of good things we have to sell ourselves to whoever is the next superintendent here.
I think promoting the district to the community and beyond is one of the basic responsibilities of a school board director.
All right. So this will be the last question for the evening.
I feel like that's a lot of pressure. My name is Ariane Blake. I am a 2002 graduate from Oskaloosa School District. I am very proud to be from Oskaloosa. This is my first school board forum that I have attended. The other day I attended my first school board evening. If I had to label myself, I would say I was a naive parent. My question is in regards to curriculum and transparency to the parents about the curriculum that's being taught. When my daughter was in 8th grade, which is last year, she had a note come home about a book, and it said that wanted to make the parents aware that the R word for mentally handicapped people was going to be used, and that was all that I knew. When they got almost through the book, a note came home to opt out of watching the movie. I then looked into the book and found out there was soft pornographic, what I consider to be soft pornographic material in this book that I was not okay with. I've also heard from a few parents of 7th graders for health class that LGBTQ topics were discussed. When a parent emailed the teacher asking for a rubric, nowhere on the rubric was that. So I think we can talk, and I want to say, I don't believe that everybody has to believe the same way I do. I think we have all different views on this. But I want a chance as a parent to be able to decide what my daughter is learning at school. So I think we can say that it is a parent-teacher, parent-administration partnership, but how do you actually see that playing out? Does that question make sense?
All right.
I think the first step to play that out would be to audit the curriculum. And I know that's a huge task. I've had some of the same challenges with my own 8th grader and my own 7th grader. That, I think, is the first step that we need to take, is to do an audit of the curriculum to find out exactly what is in there and have that open to the public.
Yeah, so this is right to one of my major points, which we already had a discussion about curriculum that is good, truthful, beautiful, right, promotes these things and indoctrinates these things into the minds of kids. It's a critical time, right? I'm not open, I do not like soft porn, any way that it goes, right? It's gross, that it is a ugly, grotesque thing. It should not be in adult things, right? It shouldn't be. We shouldn't be having those things in our minds. Let alone elementary kids, junior high school kids, senior high school kids. This is disgusting stuff that we need to be more upfront about. This is not good for the brain. This is not some cutting edge new wave of scholarship. This is reverting back to base impulses and passions that, if we believe in evolution, we would think that we had moved away from. I do not believe in evolution. I believe in creationism. I am a Christian. I do not think God has given us over to follow those base impulses, but something greater and beyond the person and work of Jesus Christ. Now, that, of course, can't be infiltrated in the schools, but what we can do is keep dangerous, ugly things that promote lies out of the minds and arms of our children.
I would have to see the actual curriculum because I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. But I do know that there are times when that information needs to be taught about LGBTQ simply to prevent bullying, because those students are bullied more than other students. They commit suicide at a much higher rate, and they can be very unsafe at school. So there has to be some information out there. I certainly not think it would be pornography, but like I said, I'd have to see what you're talking about to know whether that was, whether I thought it was appropriate. And then it comes down to, what process it went through to determine whether that was appropriate or not. I think you just have to look at those things, each time, because we can all give examples of things and it's different, so.
And I'm not sure of how all the curriculums are reviewed today, but I do remember back when, and I think even they had the Go Math, and it was one of those things, I think Colton was maybe 4th grade, and I think, as a parent who knows math and how, I will tell you maybe not the best way to teach, grade school elementary math, but to understand math. But it was one of those things where it was so much more difficult for those kids who learned a different way but it gave lots of different opportunities. So I think on curriculum, you need to vet that just like you do with anything. When people asked about the superintendent, it's like you got to vet that curriculum and what do the parents see, what do the teachers see, what's being recommended, and get all of that input and make the best decision for our kids, again, because we want high student achievement and then also to retain our teachers, but we need to make sure that they know what they're teaching and why they're teaching it.
I think for me, well, first I'd say I would love to talk to you as soon as we're done here, just to hear more about that. That's something that I teach. I teach my students at William Penn. It's something we teach in our education curriculum. We'll say the saying of, tell me more about that, right? Like, I should be listening more. I shouldn't be, well, I'm a school board member, so I'm going to tell you this and that. Like, tell me more about that. And that's something I think we do a good job in our school here at Oski, and I think we could continue to improve on is communication, both from the teacher to the parent through the administrator. Everybody involved in that process is just, for me, if elected on the school board, my job is to listen and my job is to learn. Again, I'm not going to come and impose all these things. So one, I'd love to talk to you and just open that communication more, and preach that in our schools. If things like this are happening, I guarantee it, the administrators are going to want to hear about that. The teachers are going to want to hear about that. We all care about the kids. So just finding ways to open up those channels of communication better to be able to help with problems that you're describing. I mean, and again, for me, no. Again, I'm not going to say I have the right answer, because without knowing your specific example and learning the policy, again, I have I would say a foot up on some things working in education. I know and do a lot with the Board of Educational Examiners. I've done work with the Iowa Association of School Boards. So there's a lot of things that go on with policy on that where it's just, I can't just give you an answer right here. This is what we should do. There's rules, there's regulations. So again, my job is to listen, to learn, and promote this is what you want as a parent. So we'll take it back to the school board, to the administrators, and let's do something about it so that we're not having these problems that you're describing.
Anybody else have any thoughts they'd like to share? I'm dead. All right. So any other thoughts? We're going to close it out here pretty quick. I know we're right at 2 hours, and I tried to promise we wouldn't do much of that. So anyway, I'd really like to thank everybody for coming. It's great to see this amount of interest in our school system and our kids and those that choose to try and be leaders. I'd really like to thank Aaron Riggs. He's donated his time and talent to help broadcast this. I'd also like to, there you go, April. Cheyenne from Penn Central Mall and Penn Central Mall itself for putting this all together, the chairs, the tables, all of this. So they've worked extra hard. I really have to thank the candidates for coming up here. It's never easy to sit in that seat, ever. And I know it's easy for all of us to have our opinions, and it's okay to be different, but it's really great that you put it out there for everybody. So, congrats. I also would like Paula Wright to come up, if she would, please. I know. We'll make this quick, I promise. So this gal has been helping lead our district through some of the strangest times that we could have probably ever imagined. And she's tired, so now she's going to retire. So I'd actually like to give her a round of applause and say thank you for all of her hard work. All righty, and with that, everybody gets to go home. So have a good night.